as with anything that comes forward, at least in this life, I mean, people have to check for themselves to see what their lives are doing. But as best I can tell, as anything that comes forward in this life, it draws necessarily on everything that has come before. So I have, in my career, had the good fortune to develop skills as an ethnographer and a perspective and sensibility as a social psychologist, as a phenomenologist. My doctorate is in psychological and cultural studies, and I've also done a great deal of work in schools and with the application of psychological principles in schools.
Okay.
So if you take all of that together, I didn't spend a lot of time in schools on this trip, but I did see a way that instead of, kind of doing more traditional or typical things with my time, that I could maybe give back. I also adore Studs Terkel.
Yes.
And he has recently, I don't know, past 2 years, maybe 3 years, died. I so appreciate, I remember back in the late 70s, probably, discovering the first book of his. I think it was a Race. It was probably working. It was working. And even back then, as young as I was, the thing that I saw that I appreciated so much about what he did, he was a craftsman of extraordinary capacity. He, in that, he was able to give the voices, real voices of real people, back to real people, and not need it at all to be about him. Although he would do lead-in kind of things, he was just, to me, one maximum in writing is show, don't tell. And, you could say in poetry and prose and, the art of writing. And he seemed to take, he did take the genre of nonfiction and do that, as many others have, but I was very impressed with the way that he did that. He was certainly there, but my experience was of each person that I was listening to. And so I have no idea if I am the least bit capable of replicating that kind of service, but that's another thing that I had in mind, combining ethnographic kind of approaches to gathering data and in that kind of spirit of getting it back out there. Ethnography is different from the typical scientific method, in that instead of starting with a really tight question, a hypothesis that makes kind of focuses data gathering, it starts with a giant question. And the giant question then takes all the data in, and the theory that is grounded in that takes its lead from the data. So themes begin to occur, or begin to emerge. Rather than, so it's taking as much as wide a scope as you can to begin with, rather than narrowing down and proving or disproving. And so it's just a different approach to empirical